Italian pasta topped with Japanese curry, a bar built in 24 hours, and why actors make some of the best tour guides. This week, we're in Vancouver, Canada.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. Destination Eat Drink is where food and travel come together here on the Destination Eat Drink podcast and also on the Destination Eat Drink YouTube channel and at destinationeatdrink.com. And this week, we're in Vancouver, one of North America's great foodie cities. But first, a reminder to share the podcast with your friends and family. It sure helps others discover our little corner of the podcasting universe. And if you really like the show, please consider a one-time or recurring contribution at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink. And thank you very, very much. Doug Taylor founded Taste Vancouver Food Tours 14 years ago, and today it's one of the top 20 things to do in all of Canada. Doug and his lead guide, Sean, tell me about Foodie Vancouver, including tons and tons of recommendations from hipster bars to comfort vegan food to French cafes to a pet psychic and a speakeasy, as well as Korean and Japanese influences on Vancouver's cuisine. Plus, they share the story of Gassy Jack and the Gastown neighborhood. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Doug and Sean from Taste Vancouver Food Tours. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink. I can't wait to talk to you about Vancouver.
Awesome. We're glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You know, Doug, I want to start out with you. You've made Vancouver your home, but you've been all over the world. What originally drew you to Vancouver, and what makes it a special place to live?
Well, I guess, back in the early 70s. I was actually living for a little while in Miami, and I actually had an older brother that was out in Vancouver and was kind of established out here. So I came out to see him in Vancouver, and that's when I fell in love with the city. And when I got here, I met my wife, Jewel, who had also traveled all over the world for about 5 years. And so we came together, and we had a beautiful relationship for 49 years. And then we went traveling for several years. And then she was born in Vancouver, and I was born in Toronto. And together we did several entrepreneurial businesses. And one of the last ones we created was Taste Vancouver about 12 years ago.
And what about you, Sean? What's your draw to Vancouver?
Well, I'm originally from the East Coast, and so I've gone coast to coast. And yeah, I've been in Vancouver for about 12 years now. Came out here for school. Came out here for the theater programs that Vancouver has to offer. And I've just been living here since. Vancouver's a beautiful city, and I grew up with winters that were terrible, terrible winters. And now I can go to the snow and then I can leave the snow. Vancouver is a different winter from the rest of Canada.
It's true. It's an incredible city because we're right on the water, but we have the mountains right behind us. And it's the only place in Canada where you can actually see a palm tree, which is hard to believe. A lot of people can't believe there's a palm trees in Canada, but Vancouver's mild enough. And it was the same for me coming from Toronto, seeing the winters, coming out here and going, this is winter? You got to be kidding. I remember cutting my grass in February once and just phoning my family back east just to tell them what I was doing, cutting the grass.
Well, you'll feel comfortable in Portugal. We've got lots of palm trees here. We've got them lining the waterfront in our city as well. Sean, I want to go back to something you said, which was really interesting to me because, as you can imagine, I do a lot of food tours, and I talk to a lot of people who either are guides or run food tours, and it's extraordinary to me. I meet so many of the best guides have some kind of theater or performance background. Sounds like you've got the same.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a foodie and you love sharing stories with people, then being a food tour guide is perfect for you. But the actors, those who work in theater, there's an element of being able to tell a story in an interesting way. What I also love about food tours is that they're not dry. There's a level of engagement that a tour guide should bring to the tours so that everybody has an excellent time and it lets them enjoy the food a bit more when, they don't lose energy because they're like, oh my God, I don't care when this building was built. But all of our tour guides for Taste of Vancouver were all in the entertainment industry. We have some improvisers, actors, musicians, stand-up comedians, and really it helps elevate the storytelling and also the engagement towards the guest. And there's a level of charm that needs to be brought to the tours, and that personability, that comfortableness with an audience is very important, especially with sometimes our tours, we get up to 16 people on them. So there's a level of presentation to that. But then it's also being able to take your group of 4 and making it very personable and being very comfortable meeting strangers and spending, 2.5 hours, 3 hours with them and becoming best friends by the end of it. That's what I really enjoy about food tours.
You always make friends, and food is supposed to be fun, right? So
yeah,
you better have someone who's going to be an extrovert and be able to bring the party to a certain extent. They don't have to be a clown, but they got to be able to, bring the fun a little bit, I think.
That's exactly it. And with food, it also brings people together. And I mean, I've had some really cool experiences where at the end of my food tours, people have exchanged phone numbers because they made a real connection. I had it happen once where at the end of the tour, the 2 separate groups from different countries, and one of them said, well, I'm going to go over at some point and cat sit for them. I was like, that's awesome. I love to hear that.
You guys are going to have a marriage sooner or later. There's
going to be a proposal from 2 complete strangers, and I'm all there for it.
Doug, let's talk a little bit about the food of Vancouver, and I'd like to start in Gastown because this is a place that I've heard so much about. I've seen it on TV shows and whatnot. They call it the culinary heart of Vancouver. What about Gastown? What makes it special? What do you like about it? What are some of the food that we can enjoy there?
Well, Gastown is really kind of the historic old cobble street beginnings of Vancouver. Originally, Vancouver was going to be the capital was going to be a New Westminster, about 15, 20 miles away. But Gastown just started, and maybe Sean could talk a little bit about it. A guy named Gassy Jack, who was from England, and Gassy meant that he talked a lot. And he opened kind of the first bar in Vancouver over 100 years ago. And the story goes that he came with a barrel of whiskey, a dog, $5 in his pocket, and a handful of furniture. And he asked the people living in the town at the time, it was a dry town. Basically, he made them the offer that you can have all the whiskey you could drink in one sitting if you'll build me a bar. And the question on the tour that Sean always asks is, how long did that take? And everybody guesses, and it ends up being 24 hours. They were highly motivated.
My kind of place.
So over the years, it's just been this cool, the buildings, it's where it's probably, Vancouver is Gastown is one of the areas where you get the original old brick. It does have the feeling of old England. It's very different from the rest of Vancouver. It's very unique. It's only about 4 or 5 blocks long, but it has cobble streets and beautiful flowers, and it's just got its ambience of its own. And this summer, for the first time, they've closed down the streets, and now it has that feeling of a European street where you can stop and enjoy all kinds of different kinds of food and experiences. There are several. There's so many restaurants there. One of the ones that we really like on our tour is called Brioche, and he's from Sicily. Eduardo came here 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and opened up his own restaurant, which makes phenomenal pasta, and it's one of the great experiences here. But Sean may be able to talk you more about the different types of food that are in Gastown, because he's even more of a foodie than me.
Yeah, Sean, what's some of the stuff that we can sample when we go to Gastown?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I love about Gastown, and that it speaks to Vancouver's culinary scene, where, I mean, whatever you want in Vancouver, we've got it. A lot of excellent chefs have come to Vancouver and open up restaurants, and the diversity that we have is really what makes Vancouver shine. And I find that Gastown is a neighborhood that encompasses a lot of different, a very diverse culinary scene. And so what do we got? If we go from one end, if you're wanting a hipster bar, you got Alibi Room. If you want a Korean tavern, you got Zumac. There's also a wine bar in that little area called Bar Tartar. If you're wanting a more slightly higher end experience, you go to L'Abattoir. If you want some excellent tacos, you go to Taco Fino. If they're busy, go to Gringos. Another wine bar is That French? We got 6 Acres. We got Oku. We got Monarco, which is a Mexican restaurant. If you want a speakeasy experience, I don't know if I should give the name away. You should walk by, and it's a 24-hour pet psychic place.
Okay, cool.
And that's what it shows. But you go inside, it's actually quite nice. The tables are Ouija boards. You get a tarot card with your cocktails. I should give the name. It's called Arcana Spirit Lounge. Excellent cocktails there. Geez, what else?
Goo? Mention Goo?
Goo, yeah. Oh, yeah, Goo, yeah. Goo, Japanese restaurant. Japanese is izakaya. Meat, a vegan restaurant, comfort vegan food. Lee's Donuts, excellent donuts. Cafe Kitsune, which is a lovely French cafe. The list goes on and on. I mean, live music, Guilt & Co. It's, as I said, it is diverse and a lovely place where you can just lose yourself for a number of hours having excellent food and drinks. Desserts, Waffle Land. I can just keep going on, Brent.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So you mentioned all of these different bars, and it seems to me that we've got a range going from dive bars to high-end cocktailerias. But I'm wondering about beer. Is there a local brew that we should be on the lookout for, or a really good beer bar where we can get a variety of beers?
The beer scene in Vancouver is incredible. Last I checked, there's about 73 breweries in the Vancouver area. And there are some neighborhoods where you can do your bar hopping, your brewery hopping. There's Brewery Creek, which is near Mount Pleasant. In East Vancouver, actually they call it the Yeast Vancouver Ale Trail.
I like it.
Yeah, which is a fantastic name. There's Brewery Row over in Port Coquitlam. You just walk around, spending an afternoon, go to 12 different breweries. And I mean, that sounds like an excellent weekend afternoon on a hot summer day.
12,
but
okay. I don't know.
Yeah, but some let me get a little bit more specific on some that I enjoy going to.
Okay, great.
In Brewery Creek, there's one place that I quite enjoy. It's called Electric Bicycle. And they have, what is it called? It's a raspberry tart. Yeah, it's called Atomic Tart Raz Sour. I'm also a sour beer drinker, especially in the summer. Those are my go-tos. And also what I love about Electric Bicycle is they do smash burgers, which are superb. Also in that area, some other places, Faculty, they do a London Fog Ale, which is very interesting. And that's a thing. When you got 73 different breweries in one city, you got to stand out one way or another. What's fantastic are all these breweries are experimenting and coming up with some of them fail. There's one, I won't name the brewery because they are excellent, but they tried to do a watermelon Jolly Rancher wheat ale, I think,
Right.
which just fell flat.
Right.
However, they have an excellent IPA, which I love. And there are a lot of collaborations going on between the breweries too. There's a place called Brew Hall. That's in Olympic Village. They basically, what they do is they do collaborations with a bunch of different breweries. So they don't brew necessarily in-house, but they work with everybody else, and those come to them. And it's a nice, lovely open space where it's just a bunch of picnic tables, long tables. So you're enjoying your drinks with other folks, and there's, your arcades all around. Very much a brewery, a Vancouver brewery that's sort of on brand.
Cool.
But there's also another place called Craft where, they basically have all the breweries in one spot. And that is, if you don't feel like traveling too much, you want to stay in one spot, Craft Brewery is the place to go.
Now, did I read this correctly, and that there's actually some wine making in the Vancouver area?
Yeah, in the area, it gets a little tricky because of space. So in terms of wineries, you're not going to find them in Vancouver proper. You have to go a bit further out. I think one of the closest ones is in Richmond, which is south of Vancouver. That's where the airport is. A place called Lulu Island Winery. That's probably one of the closest ones. But then you have to go a bit further out. Langley, Abbotsford. That's about an hour drive outside of Vancouver. You're going to find some more some more wineries there.
Maybe we should also mention that about 5 hours from Vancouver is the Okanagan Valley, and it's so hot there. It's actually part of it's a desert, and there's a lot of world-class wineries out there, very famous wineries. Mission Hill would be one that comes to mind. It's amazing, and those wines come into Vancouver, sold in Vancouver, but it's a very well-known wine region now in Canada, the Okanagan Valley.
Whenever I hear about Canada, I hear about poutine. And actually, I grew up in Chicago, so just north in Wisconsin, they have poutine. But talking to folks from Canada, they're like, no, that's not the real thing. Tell me a little bit about poutine in Vancouver.
Well, we have a beautiful 6 acres serves poutine to our tour guests, and it's French fries, but with a very special gravy and then white cheese curds. And it's a very popular, sort of started in the French part of Canada, Quebec, but it's managed to make its way all across Canada. So it's a unique sort of Canadian experience that people enjoy. It's taken time, but now TripAdvisor has, over the last 2 years, voted us as one of the top 20 things to do in all of Canada. And I attribute that to our guides. Our guides are professional, funny storytellers. They take food and history and make it so much fun that we get constant 5-star reviews. And it's not just the food and drinks, it's their ability to engage with an audience and have so much fun that people are laughing. There's humor and jokes that make history come alive without it being all very boring. So I attribute those awards to the talent of the 8 tour guides that we have that run the Gastown tour.
Doug, you guys also do a tour in the North Vancouver shipyards. This is an area that I'm not familiar with. What's the attraction there?
It starts with, the tour starts in Vancouver, but Vancouver has this unique experience of they have a sea bus. So it's about a 12-minute ride over to North Vancouver. And as you're going towards North Vancouver, you're staring at the skyline of the North Vancouver skyline with the background of Grouse Mountain, Seymour Mountains. The mountains are right there. So the vista when you're coming across is phenomenal, because Vancouver is one of these places where you can actually golf and ski in the same day at certain times of the year.
Nice.
And they've just recently developed an area called the Shipyards because that's where all the original ships were built back in the war days. And they've converted into something really eclectic and beautiful. So it's all right on the waterfront. There's a water park. In the winter, they turn it into an ice rink. In the summer, there's food trucks and a lot of beautiful restaurants there. And we take a tour through the Lonsdale Quay, which is a market similar to Pike Place in Seattle. And then we go into some of the restaurants that are in in the shipyards area. And we just tell the story of how the shipyards all started, and it's become kind of this new hip place just across the water from Vancouver.
Yeah, in terms of breweries, called the Shipyard Brewery District, where there are 7 breweries.
7.
There's 1 winery, 1 cidery, and 1 distillery.
I wanted to ask you about this because this is a topic that I try to talk about as often as possible, which is transplanted cuisine. When a dish or an ingredient comes from one place to another, and usually through migration, and Vancouver is famously multicultural. So I'm just wondering if you can give some examples about how these different cultures are represented in Vancouver's food scene.
Well, the only thing I'll mention is I remember walking down Commercial Avenue in Vancouver, which we call Little Italy, because we did have a Little Italy food tour one evening, and we counted 38 different ethnic restaurants. That's how diverse it was in a period of about 6 or 7 blocks.
Wow.
So it is truly food from all over the world, countries you wouldn't even know were here that are here, and people come bring their culture, bring their food. And one of the easiest things to do to get settled is to start a business with what you know from where you've come from. And so it is truly a diverse city in terms of food.
I think that what makes Vancouver shine, along with our excellent diversity in restaurants, is our fusion scene. We have a very strong Asian fusion influence here. And there's a lot of great restaurants, some that come to mind, such as Miso Taco, which is Mexican Japanese, Hissa Tanto, which is Italian Japanese.
Love it.
Love that restaurant. Sai Wu, which is Korean infused fusion restaurant. Pigeon, which is Asian French. And so that I'd say that is our strongest point here, is that fusion. A lot of cities have excellent restaurants. It's really hard to compete with all these other cities that have great scenes, but I think that just gives us that little edge over other amazing cities.
Sean, can you think of any examples of a dish that would sort of exemplify that fusion idea of two cultures coming together? You said you've got Italian Asian restaurants and French Asian restaurants. Any particular dish that you can think of that might be emblematic of this?
And like an easy example for that would be kimchi fries.
I love kimchi fries, man. I love those.
Yeah, you're just taking your, this loaded fry thing that we've been doing in North America for a number of years, and you just add kimchi on that, give that nice little kick to those fries. Oh, yeah, that simple fusion ideas that just come together beautifully.
When we lived in Austin over a decade ago, there was a food truck called Cilantro, and that was the first place where I ever saw kimchi fries. And now Cilantro, the chef there, he's become nationally known in the U.S., probably maybe not in Canada, but he's now graduated from a food truck to, I don't know, by the time we left Austin, he had 6 or 8 different locations. And I like to think of it as the empire that kimchi fries built, because, man, those things are so good.
Yeah. Oh, they're just delicious. And now I'm thinking of other ones where I just think of Kisatanto, where you have this Japanese Italian fusion. I mean, if you take those noodles from Italian cuisine, that plays so well with Japanese dishes that use noodles as well, where you can add a Japanese curry in there. You can use Wagyu beef and then also have your tomato infused sauce as well, and just mixing that together, and there's your fusion.
When I cook at home, my girlfriend, she's Italian American, I'll often do an Italian thing, but I'll put it on rice noodles rather than regular pasta. And the first couple of times she looked at me a little bit askance, but once she tried it, she was like, oh yeah, this totally, grandma might not have approved, but this totally works.
Yeah. I mean, cultures have been doing their things for, centuries. Some people are are set in their ways of cooking. But I mean, when you marry these different cultures together, oh my God, sometimes, you just add a, garam masala to something and you're like, whoa, hey, this is lovely.
It's a whole new thing, man. I love it.
It really is.
So we come to Vancouver. First thing we do, I always say on the podcast, go on the food tour.
Yes.
The next thing, we're going to go to some of these restaurants and bars that you guys have recommended, but we can't just eat, I can, but not everyone can. So besides all this great food, what else should we be sure not to miss when we come to Vancouver?
Stanley Park is a 1,000-acre park right in the city. So it's a spectacular park with trees. Vancouver's famous for its trees because it has trees that are tall and straight, that are 100, 200 feet straight up, beautiful trees. And there is a seawall that goes all around Stanley Park on the ocean that it's just spectacular. So everybody goes to Stanley Park. The other one is, as you come across to North Vancouver, there's a gondola that can take you up to the top of Grouse Mountain. And you can look down as you're going up and you'll see different wild animals down below. And up at the top, there's an incredible restaurant with an incredible view. I'm trying to think of the song. It'll come to me in a second. That song, Vancouver Lights, that song?
Life is a Highway?
Life is a Highway. Anyways, there's a verse in there that talks about Vancouver's lights.
Oh,
and it's definitely like Grouse Mountain, looking down on the city below, and you see the Stanley Park, and the city's just a jewel on the water. That's beautiful to see. And there's lots of places. If you can get out on the water, you can go up into the sort of remote areas. Because one thing unique about Vancouver is we're right on the edge of true wilderness. Like if you go a few miles north in North Vancouver, you are out in the middle of absolute wilderness. And one of the things we talk about on the shipyard tour, that Captain Cook came here in the 1700s, and he was like flabbergasted to see how many tall, straight trees were there for masts when England had all these sailing ships.
Right.
So it's one of the beautiful things. The nature in Vancouver is amazing. And when I came out here from Toronto 30, 40 years ago, one of the things I couldn't believe when we went out in the woods is, if you've ever been in a place that has mosquitoes or bugs, this one, you go out through the woods and there's no mosquitoes, there's no bugs. It was phenomenal just to go out in nature, and none of that. There's beautiful rushing rivers and waterfalls also on the North Shore. So it has spectacular natural beauty.
What about you, Sean?
If you're feeling athletic, you can take the grouse grind. Might not be everybody's thing, but I mean, if you're eating, you want to be, maybe shed some of those pounds off, so you can hike all the way up the grouse grind, which on a nice day is actually quite nice, but your legs might say the opposite. Yeah, what else? I mean, Stanley Park, yes. Granville Island is another excellent place to go see. There's the market there, a lot of great artisan shops, and that's a lovely afternoon. I mean, Gastown, now that we've gone car free, and this is something that they're piloting July, August of this year, hoping that they'll make it permanent moving forward. We just started that July 1st. And I think it really has livened up Gastown, just bringing it to the next level, which I love to see. Though, Vancouver, we're also known as Raincouver. And so there might be a few things you want to do indoors, and some great spots. In Stanley Park, there's the Vancouver Aquarium, which is honestly one of my favorite aquariums that I've ever been to. The Vancouver Art Gallery, which is fantastic. If you go out towards UBC, which is our university campus, there's the Museum of Anthropology, which honestly is, if museums are your thing, go check it out. It is my favorite museum in the Vancouver area. And they've just finished doing some renovations recently, so I haven't been since then. But it's a fantastic way to spend an afternoon.
I've heard people talk about the ferry system in Vancouver, that it hits a lot of really cool spots. And there's all these islands around there. Any other islands that would be within easy reach for us when we're in Vancouver by these ferries?
Well, there's Vancouver Island, which is about a 2-hour ferry ride. And then between Vancouver Island and Vancouver mainland, there's what they call the Gulf Islands. So there's probably 20 or 30 little islands over there. It's considered one of the best places for boating in the world, because you can go in and out of all these beautiful little islands. And Victoria is at the south end of Vancouver Island, and that's our capital of our province. And there's some fast ferries that go over there as well now. But Vancouver Island's very unique in its own way too. And the little islands have little villages and stuff. It's quite quaint. So a bit of probably a couple hours on a ferry, but certainly worth it if you want to go explore outside of the city, but see the rest of the province or some of the rest of it. Vancouver, British Columbia is a pretty huge province, but that's a beautiful place to go over to the islands.
Well, Doug and Sean from Taste Vancouver Food Tours, it's been great talking to you about your city. I've been hearing so much about Vancouver, and now after talking to you guys for a little bit, I see that the hype is real. This is a place where we need to go. We're going to have a link to your website in the show notes so that people can get in touch with you and book a food tour. They should definitely do that when they go to Vancouver and say hi to you guys and enjoy everything that your city has to offer. Thanks again for being on the show. It's been great talking to both of you.
Thanks, Brent. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's always, I always love talking about food tours.
Okay, that's Doug and Sean from Taste Vancouver Food Tours. You can book a tour or reach out to them at tastevancouverfoodtours.com. Well, that's it for this week, episode 299 of Destination Eat Drink. Next week for episode 300, we are in Stockholm for sea truffles, pickled herring, and the surprising Swedish wine culture. Until then, get over to destinationeatdrink.com. I just published a new post about the best wineries in the city of Haro, Spain. This is in the Rioja region of Spain, and these are absolutely top-notch wine producers. You could read that at destinationeatdrink.com. I also have a new video out. It's about opening a brand new restaurant in Portugal. I track all the hard work from the start of construction to opening night. Watch that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or by going to my YouTube channel at Destination Eat Drink 946. And don't forget, you can support Destination Eat Drink at buymeacoffee.com/Destination Eat Drink. And thank you very, very much. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.